Good evening, guys. Dana Alexander here. Just gonna wait a few minutes for everyone to come on. I know it's kind of a cold, blizzardy day here in Canada anyway. Hello. Hey, Megan. Just came on. Hey, Erin. Just waiting for people to come on. Guys, as you come on tonight, just let us know where you're from. Hey, Lynn. Hey. So we're just waiting for people to come on. Hey, Teresa. Hey, Roxanne. Yay, thanks, Erin. I didn't even think this check sound, so that's awesome. Idaho, hey Lynn. How's it in Idaho? Because it's really ridiculously cold and snowy here. Hey Jessica. Illinois, very nice, very nice. Hey Karen. Nice to see you all. I'm just waiting a couple minutes for people to come on. Hey Samantha. Raining. I don't know if raining's nicer than snow, but I don't know. Snow sounds awful. Hey Wendy, nice to see you. So proud of your really awesome week. Thanks for sharing it with us in the group too. So I just love those messages. So awesome. So excited. Hey Karen. Western New York. Hey Mike. You really like that Brad Pitt, don't you? Truly. Vancouver Island. What's the weather like there? Do you have snow? Because we have snow. Snow is a real thing here. Mary, hey Amanda, nice to see you too. Pennsylvania, very nice. T-shirt and shorts, jealous, totally jealous, Mike. Although, my husband we have a snow removal and lawn care company too. And my husband, he always gets so many looks because he clears snow in shorts and no jacket, and it's crazy. I do want to come visit. I'll come visit. That sounds like so much fun. Hey Tamara, I'm sorry, is it Tamara or is it Tamara? Because I always get this mixed up, so tell me how I'm supposed to say your name. I'm jealous too, Roxanne. I'm so jealous. Chestermere, Alberta, covered in snow. Probably worse than we have it here, because I heard the more south in Alberta you are, the worse it's supposed to get. So, I don't know. Going to be interesting. Anyways, I think we got quite a little viewing going here, so we're going to get started here. So I won't keep you guys waiting too long as... Okay, so Tamara. Okay, perfect. Thanks, Tamara. Now I know. Okay, so... tonight's live, before I get into that, just a couple of announcements, guys. The Everyday Pet Groomer group on Facebook has been open for officially 3 weeks on Monday, and I think we're gonna hit 500 members, guys, before the weekend's out. So I just wanted to thank everyone for the support and for joining me on this incredible journey and for making this group so positive and just sharing your talents with us. I'm just so impressed with how this is all going, and I truly think we're going to hit 500 before the end of 3 weeks, guys. So that is awesome. Thank you so much for the support. I really have been overwhelmed. Truly, I have so many messages coming in from people, and I really appreciate it. That's what keeps us going. I know it is great, Lynn. Thanks, Mike. It is. It's so awesome. So I'm pretty excited about that. So hey, Carissa, nice to see you too. Hey, you're probably buried in snow too. So for anybody who doesn't know me, or know of me, my new company is the Prestige Dog Grooming School. So that will be launching in April. So by the end of April, I'm going to say the end of April because I am a little behind with all this corona craziness. So I've got to a lot of work to do, but I just wanted to explain to you guys how those courses will be. So the courses, there'll be multiple courses available, online courses. So the first, there will be courses on specific breeds, courses on speed grooming is a specialty of mine, so there will be a speed grooming course. Lots of the things that I taught Wendy this week will be in there, plus a whole bunch more. And everything is filmed from the groomer's point of view. So this took me years to get this footage and just how I want, with actual studio lighting, so you guys can see every hair. It's focused in, and everything is filmed direct over my shoulder, exactly how you would be viewing that situation. So I felt that that was very important, because as a groomer, I definitely feel many people can learn online. I think maybe it's difficult for some people, but for me, I can learn online. So, but I need to see it, you know. So I don't know if you guys are like me, but especially since I teach green students, I teach them right straight from not knowing how to groom. I felt it was really important that they could see every hair up close and be able to see the angle of your shears versus this, versus to see the handholds, you know, all of the important things. And this is really important as groomers too. So if you're not new and you are a groomer, you're just going to pick it up that much quicker. So that is how all of the courses are filmed. So that's going to be in there. So we will have a actual certification course on there for new groomers. And that's taking you right from bathing, drying, brushing, dematting, everything on there. And then there will be mini courses like, you know, my golden doodles, my full hand scissored golden doodles, my pet poodles, you know, all that stuff. So you'll be able to check through all that stuff. But the Everyday Pet Groomer website, which I will launch by July, will be a membership for groomers. So you don't have to be a groomer to have this membership, but it's going to be very useful for groomers. So I will really appreciate you guys' feedback. Please PM me or comment here. I really would love you guys' feedback, but this is how I'm going to design the Everyday Pet Groomer membership. So as a groomer, especially when I was a new groomer, the only thing that was out there was Learn to Groom. And this is not at all a knock to them at all. Wonderful, wonderful product. But for me, as a new groomer, I need that, at least the way I learn, which we're going to discuss tonight when we discuss learning disabilities, is I need to see it up close. I really need to see it up close. I need to see the angle of everything. I'm a studying type of person that way. So I need the detail. So a view from just a profile view is not enough for me. I need to see it really, really close. So that's where the inspiration came with the way I've done things. So that's all that was available at the time when I started to groom. When I started to groom, guys, there wasn't even a grooming video on YouTube, okay? That's starting to sound old here, but seriously, there wasn't. So when I designed this membership, I was thinking of the girls that are starting out or girls that want to increase skill, but if you're only learning one dog, you have so many coming in the pet salon, and half the time we never see a full coated Bichon or we're not hand stripping a English, Springer or something like that. So, or carding coats like that. So what do you do? Where do you learn? So this is how the membership's going to be set up. It's going to be set up into categories. So there's going to be basically the different body parts of dogs. So we're going to have head, body, feet, tails, ears. That is going to be the categories. In those categories are going to be small, very precise, super step-by-step, little tiny pieces of footage. And the reason that is for a couple of reasons. Is because I feel like when you're in the middle of a groom, and I see posts like this all over Facebook all the time. When you're in the middle of a groom, I have a lot of girls or guys that we see post. They're like, guys, this just walked into my shop. This is on my table. Hey, Jackie. Hey, Todd. Hey, Amanda. We see a lot of people with that post, what do I do with this dog? Like, I don't know what to do. Its feet look horrible. Its hair is crap or whatever. This is why I am bringing the membership out the way it is. So these categories will have a lot of videos under each of those categories. So again, there'll be faces, feet, ears, tails, those sort of things. The reason I'm splitting it up so much is because you may only need one thing. So if you're like, okay, this face, I don't even know how to deal with this, you can go into your membership, click on faces, find something that's similar to what you want and what you want to do. Bam, you've got it in a less than 5-minute video. Step-by-step tutorial that you can have on your phone, set up on your table, and just follow the step-by-step and off you go. Same thing with anything. So you've got awful Maltese hair feet and you're like, what the heck? Then you can go into feet, find a video that suits what you have. You can just scroll through them quick, look through the descriptions, click on one, and then bam, there you go, right on your table. Follow the step-by-step instruction. So that is how the membership's going to be set up. And again, I'm making it affordable. I feel like we need something for the everyday pet groomer. I feel like there hasn't been enough for the everyday pet groomer. I'm talking about the twisted legs, the awful coats, the non-purebreds. There isn't enough out there. So that is what I'm trying to bridge that gap a little bit. So that is how the membership's going to be set up. If you guys have other ideas or things you would like to see in a membership, please PM me. I would love to hear your ideas, and I hope that you guys can see through my free content videos. They're just a really quick little things I throw together on my phone. These are not the studio lighting footage that is in the courses, but I wanted to give you guys a taste of what it is like to work with me, what I have to offer, and I will continue to do those free content videos for as long as I breathe air. So if you guys have other ideas of what you'd like to see, please PM me, because I hope you can see by the videos that I'm doing that I'm listening to you guys, and I'm trying to do that. So that's the Everyday Pet Groomer membership, which will launch sometime in July this summer. So and that will be, sorry if I missed the price, it will be $10.99 USD per month. So that will be on there, and you'll have access to all those videos, and there will be a couple other things in there for business in there as well, on pricing and dealing with customers and stuff like that. There'll be a little bit of stuff like that in the membership as well. But again, if you guys have other ideas of what you'd like to see in a membership, please let me know. Okay, so tonight's live is going to be about how I overcame severe anxiety and severe depression through the grooming industry. Thanks, Todd. I really hope I keep breathing air for quite some time. So I'm hoping so, Mike. I feel like that's a pretty reasonable price. I feel like it's affordable, and especially if you can't afford to buy a mini course or a full course to upgrade skills, then at least you've got help right there in your hand with the Everyday Pet Groomer. So that's kind of the idea with that. So I can't wait. I think I wish I had it. I honestly wish I'd had something like this years ago. So the Everyday Pet Groomer is, again, July, and that'll be $10.99. So how I overcame anxiety and depression because of this grooming industry. That is what our live is about tonight. So I'm going to start with a little bit about my story. So I was very fortunate growing up. My mother homeschooled us, and that was an interesting experience for me, because she was a very, very smart, innovative woman. My mother is a really incredible person, so I really have to give credit to her, because she really is what made my life what it is, and she's so creative, and so she really instilled that in me. And because I was homeschooled, not that homeschooling is needed, but because I was homeschooled, she always said, you need to do something you could do for yourself. You could work for yourself. So that always was in the back of my mind, something I could do working for myself. And she always said, do something you can do from home, because she was a stay-at-home mom, and she thought for us girls, that would be a good option, so that when we did have children, we had that option. So that was always in the back of my mind too. So I was homeschooled until grade 10. And in grade 10, I went to a new high school that had just opened up in our community. And I went a year earlier than my age. So I went at 15. I just turned 15, and whereas everyone else was turning 16 that year. So I was a year younger than everyone else, but being homeschooled, you can kind of do stuff like that. And it was a really traumatizing experience. Not that I was like overly sheltered in homeschooling. My mother gave us amazing life experiences. Like, I can't even describe to you guys. Like, I got to work for a vet when I was 10 years old and do full surgeries. I got to control the anesthesia in a vet when I was 10 years old. I got to do so many cool things as a homeschooled student. She opened the world to us, which also was a huge confidence boost for me. So we got to develop skills and abilities and talents and all these things without differently than other kids got to. So it was a really broad education in a lot of ways, but I'd never dealt with general public kids or the brutality that they can be. So in high school, it was a very brutal experience for me. Especially, I'm sure lots of you have seen, I am a bigger woman, and I am fine with that, and I am totally fine in my own skin now, but at the time it was a huge thing, and I was severely bullied. It really was a real thing that happened to me, and it was really bad. It was really bad, to the point where there's groups of people that would follow me home and throw stuff at me and yell at me, and all the way back to my house. It was really bad. So that was the first time I experienced depression in my entire life, and I didn't know what was happening to me because I came from a very optimistic, outgoing family. So, and the problem is that my family didn't know how to deal with it either, because they hadn't dealt with any type of mental illness before either. So it was a really awful time, because it was harsh. It was, for sure, it was harsh. And I didn't know how to deal with it other than to just keep going, which is good, you know. I think that's a good thing to do. But at one point, it got so bad by the time I got to grade 11 that I was having severe panic attacks pretty much nonstop. So it was starting to affect my entire life. I was starting to become non-functional. So with non-functional, if anyone has faced anything like that, I'm sure lots of you can relate. I literally wanted to stay in bed all day long. I didn't have a reason to live, that sort of feelings. And that was really overwhelming for me, because I'd never experienced anything like that before. So, and neither had my family. So my family, and at this time, just a little backtracking, we didn't own a dog. We never owned a dog my entire life. So, my parents were seriously considering, because the counselors at school told them that, you know, she needs help. She's got to get to some medication. She's got to see a doctor, you know, and my family was very anti-doctor. So that didn't happen. And, but I don't blame my family, because they've never dealt with this either. So, I mean, they didn't know what was going on. So anyways, as a last resort, my mother went into the school and tried to deal with these situations, and they got the runaround. And my mom, being who she is, she said then she's not coming back. And so she took me out of school. So I went back to homeschooling, finished my entire grade 12 within 6 months. And so at just about 17 years old, I was done high school. So at home. So, and there was I was still in this depression and this anxiety, to the point where I would not leave the house. So I worked full time, but I had many incidences at work where I didn't really talk to anybody. I was not an open person back then. So I was very introverted, very inside myself, and I didn't talk to anybody about it. And so anytime teenagers or that kind of age group of, that 16 to 19 age group would come anywhere near me, just even the sound of laughter from them or something like that, and I would have a full-blown anxiety attack, non-functional. I would have to excuse myself from wherever I was working and just go and cry in the bathroom, basically. So it was extremely affecting my life. So in my family, there's no such thing as a sick day, and I'm actually grateful for that mentality, as difficult as it was at the time to keep going and to be forced to keep going. It's honestly probably was the best thing for me. So I continued to work, and which was good for me too. But as a last resort, my parents could see I was not really improving in any way. So as a last resort, they let me buy a dog. So, which was honestly, and they say to this day, was the best thing they ever did for me. So I picked out a dog. I went and bought this little dog. I still have this little dog. She's 15. She was 15 in January. And it completely changed my life. So we never owned a dog. So we didn't even know dog grooming was the thing. Like, I didn't even know dog groomers existed. So I got this little dog, and I was still paralyzingly terrified of leaving the house or going anywhere or doing anything. But I started to realize that when I took her with me, I wasn't so afraid anymore, because I almost wanted interaction with people, because, you know, like, look at my cute little dog, and then we'd have a little conversation about her, right? So I started to talk to people again. So that was interesting. And I remember having that thought process with me, like, oh, that wasn't so bad. Like, that's interesting. So I thought that was interesting. Okay. Maybe I can start doing and branching out a little more. And then I thought, well, if I could only have my dog with me all the time, then I might actually have a life again. You know what I mean? So I was starting to think, okay, what can I do with my dog? This was my first kind of thought process. So that took me to, there was a little grooming shop actually that was around the corner from my house. So I saw it one day and realized what it was. And I went in, and they wouldn't let me work for them or anything, but the owner would let me sweep hair. So I, for a couple of days, went in there as a 17-year-old and was just sweeping hair. So I just swept hair, and I still remember to this day, this groomer was grooming one was grooming a Bichon, and one was grooming some kind of large German Shepherd cross, like Belgian Shepherd, like longer haired Shepherd. And I just remember her scissoring this beautiful flagged tail, and I was like, hook, line, and sinker, I was sold at that very moment. It's that burned into my memory. So I said, this is what I need to do. So my parents were absolutely mortified. If you guys, I think some of you know this from a previous live, but at that time I'd been competing in singing and voice for quite some years. So despite all these anxiety issues I had the ability to go on stage and sing. So I don't know how that all worked together, but I had a full scholarship to the University of Lethbridge for voice. And in fact, the professor at the University of Lethbridge was traveling to Calgary to teach me voice up until I entered the program. So they were absolutely mortified, my parents, that I wanted to go into dog grooming. They were like, this is not a good idea. And I looked on YouTube. There was no videos to teach me. I went to chapters, tried to find, I'm like, where do you learn how to groom? Like, what the heck? So I went to chapters. There was no books there, obviously. I didn't know at the time, guys. I was only 17. Anyways, I don't think even Amazon existed back then. So anyways, then I went to, what did I do after that? So after I tried to look for the books to find what to do, I just realized that there wasn't any grooming schools at that time. There was one that was just closing at the time in Sherwood Park, but Leduc School hadn't opened yet. So there was no schools around me either. So I was like, there was one in Toronto though. It was like $20,000 though or something. And my parents were like, you're not going to Toronto and becoming a dog groomer. Like, no, that's not going to happen. So it was And I was like, oh, dreams dashed, guys. Like, now what do I do? So anyways, I was still like really dedicated to figuring this out though, because this dog had given me back my life, or at least a semblance of it, a piece of it. I was like, if I could work with her, I could have a life. So that's all that was going through my head. So anyways, so I decided to my aunt came over one day and she said, oh, we go to this like supply place and we buy stuff all the time. Like they've got grooming stuff there, I think. Like, so I went to the supply place, and you guys who are from this area will know I went to Showline, and they really took me under their wing. This was a grooming supply, and obviously the name Showline. The people there, the owners, really took me under their wing and helped me a lot. I bought Notes from the Grooming Table. I bought Theory of Five, Grooming Simplified. I bought everything I could. I spent, at that time, I was still working. I was working actually 3 jobs because I was teaching music and I was working at 2 different retail places. Every penny I made, I went and bought random grooming stuff. So, and then I literally convinced my parents to let me build a room in their garage. So, I don't know how I accomplished that, guys, but I convinced them to let me, so I paid a contractor to build a tiny room in my parents' garage, and I opened up the original Squeaky Clean Paws, and I had never groomed, guys. You know, Team 10 Blade, some of you know who I'm talking about. I literally, yes, Shannon and Colin, they were so nice to me. They were so wonderful at Showline in Calgary. Anyways, yeah, I didn't know anything, literally anything. I just picked up a pair of clippers and I started grooming. I, by the way, disclaimer, am not condoning that method of education, but at the time, that's what I did. So, not condoning, just telling you all the truth. So, I just started grooming. People came, I would look at a picture and be like, sure, I could do that, no problem. Started advertising, and then about 2 months into doing this, I got a call from a home groomer in my area that was retiring, and I ended up buying her client list. So, pretty much within 2 months, I had, several hundred customers. And honestly, I can honestly say this is why I know that positivity and kindness are a real thing. Because honestly, guys, those customers were not coming to me for the grooms. That's for sure. I'm glad I don't have, actually, sometimes I wish I had pictures because it was probably absolutely terrifying. Guys, I was not trained at all. I literally was just like grooming people's dogs in my garage with no rhyme, no reason, or training at all. So it was not for the grooms that they were coming. So guys, kindness and customer service is a real thing, because there was some reason they were coming and it wasn't the grooms. So it had to be the customer service, I guess. So anyways, so I had these customers and my parents were like, no. I was still working my other job, so I was literally grooming like 10 or 15 dogs on Saturdays, and my parents were like, no. This has got to stop. We don't do this. So they were not down with the animals in the house. So that's when it would have been about 8 months after opening in the garage with no training, I convinced a vet clinic to let me rent their salon, because I was like, I'm not going to work for you guys because I have my own clients, so why would I work for you guys? And it was the best move I ever did, because I opened up this half a vet clinic. I got my own phone number, my own name, took my own everything there, and just rented the space. And then it was in a really busy community, and I put a sign out on the street that had a phone number, and I was literally inundated overnight and had no idea what I was doing. So, long story short, that's how I got into grooming. And the moral of the story, though, is that I never stopped learning. I gobbled up anything that I could find, any information that I could find, but I wasn't friends with any groomers either. I had no idea there wasn't really Facebook. I didn't have Facebook back then, for sure, so it wasn't really that community feel, and groomers were very dog eat dog back then too, so that was kind of a thing. So after that, I ended up 6 months after the vet clinic, I opened up my own shop, had staff. I learned a lot of techniques and actually had a groom from a lot of girls that I hired. So I just could kind of watch them and then repeat. I don't think those girls ever realized that I actually had no idea how to groom until I watched them. I was like, oh, you're supposed to scissor the legs. Okay, I better scissor the legs. So I literally didn't know that until I hired somebody, right? So I watched and I learned. And this is why I know that some people can learn online, because I literally watched from a table or two away and repeated. And that's how I got my start. And we were extremely busy once I opened up my first salon. And that was a huge success. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. But the anxiety and the depression were still there. So this is how I started to overcome these feelings. I was still having these panic attacks. I couldn't deal, especially if a younger customer came in, or still in the street, just in the street, if I had to go somewhere and, you know, a younger crowd, a group of kids was walking by, I couldn't even get on my vehicle. So this was really affecting my ability to run my business and to have a normal life. And I finally decided, you know, like, I have to do something about this. So what I ended up doing was I ended up studying a lot about energy and connecting with the animals. And I'm not even sure how to explain it, but just being intuitive with how the animals are feeling. And I was just fascinated by this. So I really started to study how I was feeling was affecting the animals that I was grooming. So I realized that if I was upset, that would often send the groom in a tailspin, right? So I was like, this is really interesting. So I started to realize that that I couldn't fake it for the animals. The animals knew 110% where my headspace was at, no matter what. Those animals could feel it. So I started to realize that I couldn't fake it anymore for the animals anyway. They knew anyway. So really my change started to happen when I realized, like, changing for myself wasn't enough, but once I wanted to change for the animals was a big breakthrough for me. So once I decided I needed to change for the animals' sake, to improve my grooming and to improve my relationship with the animals on my table that I was servicing, that's when I hit some breakthroughs. So for me, let me know, guys, if you guys all relate. I see a lot of you relate that animals can be a huge turnaround. And it really, really was for me. So I started to really, I made myself a list. So I made myself a list that I had to think of, that I kept at my table, and that I still refer to, because I realized I had to change my thought process. Because I could look at this teenage crowd, you know, sitting in my car terrified to walk into a store because some teenagers walked by or something. That was my trigger for sure. One of my triggers anyway. And I realized that this was irrational thinking. But the problem is, once you've had an anxiety disorder or a depression, and those of you who suffer from this will understand, and I'm going to describe it for those who don't, is that you have a physiological response to that. So despite my brain telling me and my words in my head saying, this is irrational, there's no reason, like, you're a grown woman now, you don't even go to high school anymore, like, that happened like 5 years ago, or at this time 6 or 7 years ago, like, that is irrational thinking. Even though I had gotten to the point where I could have that thought process with my mind, my body still had a very, very physiological response. The fear, the tightening of the chest, the racing heart, you know, breaking into a sweat, the panic, basically. And I was like, so how do I stop my body from doing this? Like, what the heck, right? So this is when I started to really, really dive into how to start my thoughts affecting change in my actual physical self. So cognitive behavior therapy. Thank you, Tim. I know there's names for these things, guys, but for me, this was completely separate from anything. Because remember, my parents of my family, we were very anti-doctor, anti-medication. I'm sure medication would help me through a lot of this, but at the time that was not available to me, and nor was it an option in my mind at that time. I'm not in agreement with that anymore, but that is what was happening at the time. So at the time, I had this list at my table, and I would make myself go through this list. And at the top, it just said, how are you feeling? So I started to ask myself this question all the time. How am I feeling? So this is a really interesting question to ask yourselves, guys. And the next part is you have to be dead honest with yourself. So if I was feeling frustrated, angry, upset, any number of emotions, I was then recognizing them. So that was really important to my transformation as well, was to recognize how I was feeling, and not even why, just recognizing the feeling itself. Okay, I'm feeling this, and then once I started to do that on a regular basis, I started to notice it sooner. So once I started on a regular basis checking in with myself, then I started realizing that I was noticing it sooner. So when it was smaller. So just the hint of it. Once I was able to start pinpointing when I had the hint of starting to get upset is when I saw real change. So this was over several months, guys. I want to say this took at least a year and a half overall. But this was work every day. Every single day I worked on this. So once I could start to focus in and hone in on just the beginnings of a feeling, then I started working on strategies on how to just nip it in the butt right then. So right at the beginning, I would do a lot of different things. I would play music. I know a lot of you guys do that. I would listen to book tapes. Was a huge thing for me. I would make a phone call to a friend, talk to a friend on the phone, even a client. There's a lot of different ways that you can distract yourself from that. And also I would have the same conversations with myself. I said, this is not rational. There's no threat imminent right now. This is not an okay feeling. And I would put that out. So that's what I would do. And that really helped change my thought process. And I noticed that the animals responded instantly because I wasn't faking it. If I really didn't feel that way inside, the animals responded amazingly well. So that was really encouraging. That actually helped enhance the effect because I was doing it for them in the first place and seeing their instant response to me, because they can feel it, guys. They really, really can feel it inside you. So I could do it for them. So, and to describe, as I changed my thought process and did this over and over, the physiological responses became less and less and less and less, to the point now where I feel a slight anything and I can literally tell myself to put that away, and it happens. So that didn't happen overnight, guys. I'm not trying to just say that this is something you can just do overnight. It was a real working aspect, but for the animals, I could do it. They were my why. They were really my why. And I could see the results instantly with them. And so many of them connect with you when you're going through stuff like this. So that was how I did that. And just to give you guys an example, I actually ended up buying a blood pressure monitor to give you guys an example of that you can eventually affect your physiological self. So I was able to get to the point where I could control my blood pressure and bring it down just by thinking positively, thinking kind thoughts, and catching the anxiety or depression before it became out of control. So just like when you're dealing with an animal, we're trying to prevent behavior. It's the same thing with me. I have to prevent issues happening. So that's always my goal, is prevention. So that's what I ended up doing to stop and overcome anxiety. In the grooming industry, honestly, I can honestly say it saved me, because if it weren't for those animals and needing and having them be my why, I would still be living with that anxiety and depression. Like, I can't even imagine. Like, I am so eternally grateful to this industry for all that it's done for me. I honestly can't even. For those that have been through all of this and have experienced this, and for those who haven't, I'm sure that, sorry guys, I'm just going to readjust here. For those of you that haven't, I'm sure you know someone that has. It can be life-changing. Mental illness can be. So it doesn't make you different. It just, everyone experiences anxiety and depression to some degree. But really, animals can change your life, and they did for me. So that is how I did that over time. And once I got into teaching grooming, which was just over 10 years ago, I started to realize that, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but this is a trend I definitely noticed over owning several salons and teaching grooming. There was a large percentage of groomers, male and female, that have mental illness challenges that were attracted to grooming. And I really feel that was because of the therapeutic effect of the animals, and also a lot feel that is less contact with people, which we know sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't in grooming, but to a lot of people it's less contact with people, so it was just more comfortable for them. So I noticed this trend, at least in my area, of people with mental illness being attracted to dog grooming as an industry. And it really is a great industry for those. It really, really is. Now, having said that though, this is also where we end up with those who tread too far on the other side and can turn into abusive groomers. So I really, really, that's why I'm doing this live tonight, because I have experienced many, many times when I owned shops where I had to say, hey, to a groomer that worked for me, not the same one, but multiple over the years, where I would have to say, hey, because I'm so in tune over years of practice, I can feel it from them before they have even recognized it themselves. And I'll say, hey, how are you feeling? And often they need a break, and I will tell them, you know what? You need a break. Aaron, I'm going to commend you. I know you took a break today, and we're going to talk about that later, but on a dog you were grooming. But I thought that when you sent me that message that you were taking a break, I'm like, yes, that's how you handle it. And as an employer, I would say, you know what, you need a break from this animal. This animal needs a break from you. And I saw trends. Groomers that could not control their emotions, dogs consistently became worse if they remained with that same groomer. So it's a real thing, guys. Even if you're not physically abusive, sometimes your emotional abuse to the animals is a real thing too. Because remember, you can't fake it to an animal. So does that mean you can't have a bad day? No, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying if they consistently are facing that kind of feeling and that panic and that anger or frustration from you, even if you're not taking it out on them, it's trauma. It can be traumatizing to them. So that was my experience. And I started to realize I had to help some of these girls and guys, and just say, you know what, I think you need to step away for a few minutes. And, just by doing that, they started being able to do it for themselves. I noticed some of these girls would then be like, you know what, this dog's really starting to get to me. I'm just going to go for a quick walk. And I would always say, no problem at all. Absolutely. Go do that. Any ability to check yourself and to recognize how you're feeling, I am all for. So go for it, go for it, go for it. So that's what I started to do with the girls in my shop. And then when I started to teach, I would recognize these things in the girls early on. So and those of you on here who have learned from me know that this is true, that I would always say, but how are you feeling? And, you know, getting angry is not going to help. Getting frustrated is not going to help. And if it's too much, I can help start to think about how you can lessen the stress. Can you use a belly band? Can you change your position? Can you change the dog's position? Problem solve. So that was always my go-to, and my students can tell you this, that my go-to is always, okay, look at yourself. Is there anything you can change? Is there anything about the position of the dog that you can change? Is there anything that you can affect to get a different result? And if not, you know, with students that I'm teaching new, I will always take the dog, and I will tell them that right when they begin the course, that I may remove a dog from you, and it is absolutely not a criticism to you. It's that if I see the stress level go above a certain level for you or the animal, then I'm going to remove it for safety. So, but I also do that to help people realize where their breaking point is and where they need to make those checks and balances, because I've seen it far too many times where groomers who are not in tune with their own emotions then go the other way and become abusive to animals, which is terrifying, but it happens in our industry. So we need to be aware of it. And this is where this group is very important to me, to stay positive and kind, because my students can also tell you this too, is that I am extremely, as much as we see very difficult situations, I am always about that we should really withhold judgment as much as we can, especially with other people, because you don't know what that person's going through, so, or what they have gone through. And if someone is suffering from mental illness, their actions may not be 100% in their control. I'm for responsibility, I really am, but I'm always for that, you know what, anger and frustration don't get anybody anywhere. So that's how I always think of it, is that when I see abusive groomers online or things like that, I think, you know, this person is suffering and they don't have help. So that's kind of where my mind goes to when I think of that. Not that that condones it, but it gives you an extra boost to just make sure that you're taking care of yourself so that you can take care of those animals correctly. So that was a big life changer for me, and I incorporate that when I teach, is that I'm very much about, I pay close attention to how the students are feeling and what vibes are coming off of them and how the animals are reacting to them. And I can tell instantly if frustration levels are getting too high, and then I try and help them walk through that. And that's why often I break grooms down into very small step-by-step, because then I tell them, like, lots of you have seen my video on the back leg where we split the leg into 3, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. If you haven't, go check it out on YouTube, or just search my name in the Everyday Pet Groomer group and you can find it. But often I'll split the leg into a third, a third, a third. That idea came because of anxiety and depression for me, because I had to break it down for myself to be able to stay positive. So when I was struggling with a dog pulling a leg, I would literally repeat to myself, I'm just focused on this 1/3. And then when I'm done that one, I would have a little celebration to myself. Oh, you did it. Okay, let's do one more third and break it down. So that's how I teach too, is how to break it down to 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. And that's how I teach everything, because I find that gives you lots of opportunities to check yourself and to really feel how are you feeling. So, and I do that with my students. Now, another thing I noticed in the dog grooming industry over the years is that a lot of groomers, male and female, have learning disabilities. Often people don't realize they have learning disabilities. It's only in this last, I'd say, 5 or 6 years that there's been a huge awareness about learning disabilities. But a learning disability, I hate the word disabilities, because for me it's a learning difference. Like, you just learn differently than other people. So for me, I'm a very visual learner. I always have been. Before grooming, I was a visual learner, and my mother knew this when she homeschooled me. Everything we did was very, very visual. So, and I always excelled in visual things. So often when I'm teaching girls or guys, a lot of them don't realize that they probably have a learning disability. Lots of them didn't do well in school. They struggle with math, reading, or writing, or all of them. And a lot of them have very, very low self-esteem. And that comes because everything they've always done has always been mediocre or less. And then when they get into grooming and realize they have real talent and ability and skills, and they found their calling. So, and because grooming is not a regulated industry, it attracts a lot of people, because you don't need a lot of credentials to get into this industry. So it's Roxanne, too funny. Me too. Math is not my thing. So that's what I noticed over the years, that it attracts a lot of people with learning disabilities as well, which is not a bad thing. I myself have a reading comprehension learning disability, which I didn't realize until I was an adult. My mom realized it when I was younger. She knew that she had to adapt education to me because I was a visual learner. Even for math, I had to learn it visually. My mother was so fantastic at that. Again, she's an absolute genius. But that's why so many of us are so good at grooming, because we're really good with our hands, and we're really good at noticing that medium and that type of detail. So just very, very fascinating. So with all of that, I just want to, we're going to wrap this up, but I just want to commend everyone in the industry, and I really want to thank everyone in this group, because positivity is absolutely needed. We have too much negative in this world today. And you know what? Sometimes you don't know how someone is suffering or what they're going through, and your words could make all the difference, and your support could make all the difference. And that is what the Everyday Pet Groomer is about. And I just cannot thank everyone enough who is just giving such wonderful, kind, positive feedback to people on their grooms, and great advice. And that is what the Everyday Pet Groomer is about. It's all about that. And really, guys, you guys have blown me away. A lot of these grooming groups on Facebook are extremely negative. They bash each other, they attack each other, they, the snide, sarcastic comments, and it's not for me. It's not for me. And for a lot of us, I think I know, because you guys are in this group, you're sick of it. So that's what the Everyday Pet Groomer is about coming together, uplifting each other, supporting each other, and just creating a new environment, and just learning. Never stop learning. Help someone gain some confidence. Let's share our stories and lift each other up. And, we've got a tough enough job as it is. It's a hard job we do. But isn't it amazing that so many people that suffer from mental illness are attracted and love this hard job? It's amazing. And they thrive at it. They absolutely thrive at it. So I just want to thank all of you for joining the group, for supporting what I'm trying to do. And, this has been an interesting journey for me. It goes against what a lot of people think is okay in the education industry. A lot of people don't believe in online education. A lot of people overlook the everyday pet grooming, but that's okay. It's okay. There's lots of other avenues. There's something for everybody. But I'm so pleased to have all you guys here, and I just wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And please share your stories with me. And again, if you've got any ideas or things you want to see, share them with me. I'm here for you guys. Everything I'm doing is for you. I am one of you. I still groom for a living, everyday pets. And I just thought to myself, what did I need, especially when I was starting out? And I'm trying to bring that to the grooming world. Thanks, guys. I'm happy I could share my story with you and share yours with me. And I love you all. And we'll talk soon.